I unintentionally connected to my wife's car Bluetooth and overheard a conversation. LOL, that kid isn't even his. The DNA test would ruin him. My anger surged, but I managed to remain composed. I continued driving the kids to school as usual. 5 days later, she regretted what she had said. I've been married to my wife Maria for almost a decade, with 8 of those years being official. We have a 6-year-old son named Grayson, who I believed was my everything, or at least I thought so until last week. I'm still trying to process everything, so I apologize if my thoughts seem disorganized. My mind isn't in the best place right now. It was just an ordinary Tuesday, nothing out of the ordinary. I was on my lunch break, browsing Reddit, and thought to call Maria to ask if she could grab something for dinner. She was supposed to be having lunch with her friend, Vivian, at a pricey sandwich shop that Maria really liked. I tapped her contact on my phone, and as it tried to connect, instead of ringing, I suddenly started hearing voices. After a moment, I realized my phone had linked with her car's Bluetooth. That happens sometimes when she's nearby, and the call default directs there. She must have been sitting in the parking lot or something. Then I heard it, Vivian's voice. Crystal clear, a lol, that kid isn't even his. The DNA test would ruin him. I went completely still, the sandwich halfway to my mouth, breath caught. At first, I hoped they were referring to someone else. You know, it had to be someone else. But then Maria let out that distinctive laugh she has for things that are both amusing and scandalous to her, saying, well, I know, right? Sometimes when Thomas is playing with Grayson or helping with homework, I just have to leave the room. It's overwhelming, too. My heart dropped when Vivian asked how she'd managed to keep it a secret for so long, and Maria began gloating about it, how she had this intense bond with Darman, her boss, 2 years prior during a work conference in Chicago. She talked about how she had considered leaving me for him, but then discovered she was expecting and that he wasn't ready for fatherhood. So she let me believe Grayson was mine all along. As I listened, my hands trembled so much that I dropped my phone, not even noticing when the screen cracked. Who cares about a cracked screen when my entire life has come crashing down? And then Maria continued, Thomas would never question it. He's so oblivious. Plus he adores Grayson and thinks he resembles his dad. More laughter. I hung up, unable to bear it any longer. At that moment, I was on the verge of driving straight to that sandwich place to confront her. I was gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white with rage. I've never felt so furious, but something held me back. Call it self-preservation or whatever. I took a few deep breaths, thanks to a lousy stress management program at work, and resolved not to lose my cool, not just yet. I knew I had to approach this strategically. I called in sick for the remainder of the day, telling my supervisor I had food poisoning. I drove around for about 2 hours just thinking, while my phone buzzed with notifications, group chat messages, emails, you name it. But I couldn't concentrate on any of that. When I finally started to get my thoughts together, I called an old high school friend, Jackon, who is now a lawyer. I didn't share specifics, just asked him to recommend someone for family issues. It must have been evident that something was off because he fit me into his schedule that same afternoon. His office outlined my options. In our state, divorce is no fault, but infidelity can affect asset division. He advised me to gather evidence and secure finances, all practical matters that seemed incredibly overwhelming with my brain in chaos. But that's exactly what I did. I returned home that evening and somehow managed to maintain normalcy. I prepared dinner with Maria, helped Grayson with his spelling homework, and watched a mindless reality show on Netflix with her, curled up beside me on the couch, all while feeling like I might throw up or scream, or both. The following days passed in a similar pattern. Wake up, make breakfast, kiss Maria goodbye, and drive Grayson to school. Those drives killed me. Looking in the rearview mirror at him, I couldn't believe how I never noticed he didn't have my eyes or chin, or anything that belonged to me. Meanwhile, I was making moves. I opened a separate bank account at a different institution, secured all our financial records, began transferring small amounts to the new account, made copies of vital documents, and took pictures of family heirlooms that were definitely mine before marriage. I documented everything meticulously in a password-protected Google document. And Maria didn't suspect a thing, why would she? According to her, I'm oblivious. I even managed to swipe Grayson's toothbrush for a DNA test and ordered one of those kits online with expedited shipping. The wait was agonizing, but I needed to know, even though I already had a gut feeling, if that even makes sense. The hardest part is still being a dad to Grayson. None of this is his fault. I've been the only father he's ever known. When he asks me to read him a bedtime story or shows me his new Minecraft creation, I still do it. I still love him, And that bond hasn't changed, which complicates everything even more. Now, 5 days later, I still haven't confronted Maria. I'm still driving Grace into school, still kissing my wife goodbye in the mornings, as if everything is normal, but it's not. And soon she'll realize just how far from normal things are. I've arranged our anniversary dinner for this Saturday at a nice restaurant downtown that she's always wanted to try. She thinks I'm being romantic, but little does she know I have a special surprise planned. The DNA results should arrive by then. I'm not typically vengeful. I always believed I was above that. But hearing her joking about how she deceived me for 6 years regarding something so monumental, this isn't over, not by a long shot. I'll provide an update after Saturday. Wish me luck. Vidit update. First off, a big thank you to everyone for your support on my last post. I never anticipated so many people would be invested in my life, considering its current chaos. Sorry it took me some time to update. I have been somewhat occupied dismantling my life in the best way possible. So, where was I? Right, the anniversary dinner. But let me backtrack a little. Those 3 days leading up to Saturday felt like an eternity. I woke up next to Maria each morning, feeling suffocated, watching her cheerfully get ready for work while I knew she intended to spend the day with the man who fathered my child. Pure torture. The DNA test arrived Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home that day and practically tackled the delivery person. Maria was at work, so I had the privacy to open it. It took me about 20 minutes to actually break the seal, pacing around the kitchen, staring at the envelope like it would bite me. The results were exactly what I expected. 0% chance I was Grayson's biological father. Yet it felt like I had been hit by a truck. It's one thing to know something, but it's another to have it confirmed. I spent an hour sitting on the bathroom floor, just breathing. After I collected myself, I fine-tuned my plan. On Thursday morning, I met with Jack on again, brought him the results, and he helped me get everything organized. The legal details are mundane, but essentially, I had already shifted about 60% of our savings to my new account, made copies of all shared assets, changed passwords on my accounts, and had paperwork ready to file first thing Monday morning. On Friday, I reached out to Darman's wife, Malia, through Facebook. I had never met her before, but her profile was public, and I felt she had a right to know too. I sent her a message, stating I had vital information regarding her husband and my wife. She read it right away but didn't respond. The ball was in her court. Saturday morning was our anniversary, and Maria was all giggly, thinking I was in a romantic mood. She went for a manicure and pedicure, which charged to our credit card. Meanwhile, I completed my preparations, placing the DNA results in an anniversary card along with screenshots of text messages between her and Darman that I had found on our shared iPad. Pro tip: if you're cheating, maybe avoid using the family iPad. Dinner was at 7 p.m. at the Italian restaurant downtown, with reservations made weeks prior. Well before I understood my life was a facade. I arrived 15 minutes early, incredibly anxious, checking my phone every 30 seconds. The waitress probably thought I was stood up. Then Maria walked in. I can't deny she appeared stunning, in a red dress, hair flawlessly done. Everything. For a brief moment, I nearly felt remorse for what was about to unfold. Almost. She sat down, animated, excitedly discussing how she couldn't believe I remembered this was the restaurant she'd always wanted to try. She ordered some fancy wine that I couldn't even pronounce and was being all flirty, placing her hand on my arm and playing footsie under the table. Meanwhile, I was just nodding, smiling, all while my insides were churning. As our food arrived, she began taking pictures for her Instagram. Got to keep up appearances, right? Then she asked if I had anything for her, delivering the question, with a little pout that used to charm me, but now made me want to flip the table. That's when I pulled out the envelope, a lovely blue one with "Happy Anniversary" written in silver letters. Very classy. Maria's eyes lit up. She was anticipating jewelry or something similar. She opened it, and multiple papers spilled out. Initially looking puzzled, she began reading, and I wish I had a camera to capture the sequence of emotions that crossed her face. It was like she went through the 5 stages of grief in mere seconds. Confusion, shock, denial, anger, followed by a vacant expression. She quietly murmured that she could explain, that it wasn't as it seemed, that she had made a mistake, but it was just once and a long time ago. I remained silent, letting her dig her own grave. Then she raised her voice, claiming I had violated her privacy, that I had no right to snoop through her belongings or obtain a DNA test without her consent, that I was attempting to humiliate her. That was when I finally spoke up, telling her I hadn't snooped. She and Vivian had broadcasted it over Bluetooth. Her face drained of color as I let her know I had already spoken with Jacken and moved most of our assets. that divorce papers would be filed Monday morning, and that Malia was aware of everything. The restaurant was bustling, people had started staring, and the waiter was uncomfortably loitering nearby, trying to avoid our table. Maria then broke down, crying, not beautiful movie tears, but the ugly kind, with mascara running down her face and her nose dripping. She pleaded with me not to do this, saying she loved me, that Grayson needed his father, and that we could resolve things. I posed one simple question: why? Her answer was so pitiful it was almost comical. She claimed she and Darman shared a connection, but that he wasn't dependable, and she justified it by saying she knew I would be a good father, convincing herself it was the best choice for everyone involved. Everyone except me, of course. I paid my share of the bill and left her to handle hers. I know it was petty, but it felt satisfying. As I walked out, she followed me into the parking lot, still crying and creating a scene, while onlookers recorded everything on their phones, which only made her more hysterical. I got into my car, rolled down the window, and told her I'd return the following day to collect my belongings, suggesting she tell Grayson I had to be away for work for a few days until I figured out how to explain it to him. The remainder of the night is somewhat hazy for me. I checked into a downtown hotel. Maria called me 57 times, leaving 29 voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. She sent over 100 texts that ranged from pleading to threatening, and then back to begging. By Sunday morning, she was still relentless, saying she'd take Grayson away if I didn't come home, that I was abandoning my family, and threatened to make sure everyone knew what a terrible person I was. I responded with a simple text: check your email. I had sent her the screenshots of her correspondence with Vivian, the DNA results, and photos of her and Daman from a work event, where they appeared quite cozy. I told her that if she wanted to play dirty, I had more ammunition than she could fathom. There was silence on her end after that. Around noon, my mother called. Maria had reached out to her, crying about how we had a fight, and I walked out. My mum sensed something was wrong because I never walk out during arguments. I prefer to resolve them calmly. I shared the basics with her, and within 3 seconds, she went from shock to furious, stating she was heading over to assist me in retrieving my things. I had to dissuade her from showing up at our house with a baseball bat. My friend Derek allowed me to stay at his place for a few days, while I sorted out an apartment. I have one secured, starting next week. Nothing extravagant, but it allows pets. I've always wanted a dog, and Maria was allergic. Monday morning, Jackin filed the paperwork, and Maria was served while at work. Based on what our mutual friends relayed, she had a total breakdown and was sent home early. On Tuesday, I finally saw Grayson. That was the hardest conversation of my life. Trying to explain to a 6-year-old why Daddy wouldn't be living at home anymore without revealing the actual reason. He cried. I cried in private, and I promised him that nothing would change between us, that I'd still take him to soccer and help with his homework, and all the typical dad stuff. By Wednesday, I received a text from Malia. She and Darman were taking a break while sorting things through, and she asked to meet for coffee. I haven't replied yet. I have too much on my plate. Maria's mother also contacted me, a kind woman who had never been fond of how Maria treated me. She expressed her disappointment, but added that she wasn't surprised since Maria had always been self-centered, even as a child. She asked if she could still see Grayson occasionally, and I assured her that none of this family drama was his fault. So that's where things stand. Maria's reputation is in ruins. Her work situation is incredibly awkward, and I'm staying with Derek until my apartment is ready. Meanwhile, I'm striving to keep things normal for Grayson. Oh, and Vivian. She's been silent since, deleting her Instagram and everything. I guess watching your best friend's life fall apart due to your loose tongue can be a bit uncomfortable. I don't know what else to say. I'm still processing everything. Some moments I feel oddly liberated, while at other times, I'm merely sorrowful for what could have been. I'll provide another update when there's more to share. Thanks again for all the support. It means the world coming from strangers on the internet. Edit White, this post has blown up again. No, I don't have screenshots to share. That would be inappropriate. Yes, I still see Grayson regularly. No, I don't harbor any hatred toward him. He's innocent in all this. Yes, I got tested for STDs, negative. Please stop asking about Malia. Nothing is happening there. RTL, DR. Confronted cheating wife with DNA results during our anniversary dinner, resulting in a public meltdown. Divorce is underway, and I'm doing my best to be a good dad to Grayson despite everything. Final update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my last update. I'd be lying if I said a part of me didn't want to vanish and forget about this whole ordeal forever. But I promised an update, so here it is. It's been 5 months since D-Day, the anniversary dinner from hell. And my life has changed, not perfectly, Not even significantly better some days, but different in ways I needed. Just last weekend, while unpacking boxes in my new apartment, I'm still working on unpacking after 3 months, I stumbled upon an old photo album from when Grayson was a baby. Sitting on the floor, I spent 2 hours flipping through it, feeling odd, looking at pictures of me holding him in the hospital, bursting with pride, now equipped with the knowledge I have. Yet, despite everything, I still felt like his dad. So, a lot has occurred since my last post, so let me try to summarize everything. First, the divorce was finalized last month, which is incredibly swift for our state. The judge glanced at the evidence and essentially told Maria she could accept the terms or complicate matters and likely receive less. She opted for the deal. I received primary custody of Grayson, a tremendous win for me. I kept my car and retirement accounts and only had to give her 30% of our savings instead of 50%. The house is being sold and we're closing next week. My lawyer, Jackon, mentioned that I was fortunate with the judge, who apparently has zero tolerance for infidelity. The custody outcome was particularly surprising. Maria didn't even put up much of a fight, which my mom theorizes is because Maria knows she's unable to manage Grayson full-time with her life in disarray. But still, it stings to know she'd give up so easily. Speaking of Maria's life unraveling, it hasn't been pretty for her. After her public breakdown at the restaurant, which, by the way, ended up on TikTok because, of course, some teenager filmed it, things spiraled downward rapidly. Darman fired her to salvage his own marriage, so she lost her job. The majority of our mutual friends picked sides, and not many sided with her. She's now living in a mediocre one-bedroom apartment and working at Target. I know this because Grayson tells me, not because I'm keeping tabs on her. As for Darman, that entire situation imploded spectacularly. Malia and I did eventually meet over coffee, and it was super awkward at first, like, what do you say to the wife of the guy who got your wife pregnant? But she turned out to be quite pleasant, very different from Maria, more reserved and contemplative. She shared that Darman initially tried to deny everything, then blamed Maria for seducing him, before finally owning up to the situation. They're in counseling now, working to resolve their issues for the sake of their kids. Not my circus, not my monkey. The most challenging part has been with Grayson. I had to explain to him some version of the truth eventually. That I'm not his biological father, but I'm still his dad in every significant way. He's only 6, so grasping that concept is confusing, but children adapt easily. He had a rough few weeks, acting out at school and wetting the bed again despite being potty trained for years. We arranged for him to see a therapist who specializes in children from complex family situations. Basically a fancy way of saying your family life is a hot mess. Last month, Darman requested to meet Grayson. My gut reaction was an emphatic no, but the therapist suggested it might benefit Grayson long-term to know who his biological father is. We coordinated a supervised meeting in a park where Darman was painfully awkward, bringing way too many gifts and clearly unsure how to engage with a child. Grayson was shy initially and eventually treated him like any random adult, showing him his Pokemon cards and rambled about Minecraft. After about an hour, Grayson asked if they could go get ice cream, barely saying goodbye to Darman in the car. He merely commented, "He's not as fun as you, Dad." Not going to lie, I got a little emotional. Darman relinquished his parental rights, but agreed to pay child support, which Maria flipped out over, believing she would receive those payments. Nope. That money is going straight into Grayson's college fund. My new place is nothing extravagant, just a 2-bedroom apartment, in a decent neighborhood, close enough to Grayson's school for the majority of drop-offs. I got him a bunk bed for his room, even though he doesn't need the top bunk. He thinks it's the coolest thing ever. My mom visits often and helps me with Grayson when I need it. She's been my support through everything. The apartment has its quirks. A dishwasher that sounds as if it's possessed, a strange smell in the hallway that nobody can identify, and an upstairs neighbor who apparently practices. River dancing at 2 a.m., but it's mine. No ties to Maria, no deceit, just me and Grayson creating new memories. Oh, and we finally got a dog, a rescue mutt named Rex, who follows Grayson around like he's the second coming. Work has been a good distraction. I even got a small promotion last month, nothing major. Just a little more responsibility and a slight pay increase, enough to buy Grayson a Switch for his birthday without stressing about the cost. I've been putting in extra hours, partly for the money, and partly as a means of keeping my mind engaged. My social life exists now, which is a relief. I joined a meetup group for single dads, which sounds lame, but it's actually great to connect with other guys who understand my situation. We do activities with the kids. sometimes, and grab drinks without them on other occasions. Talking with others who've gone through similar trials has helped more than I anticipated. I started dating again last month, although nothing serious, just casual coffee and dinner dates. I met a woman named Ellie on Hinge who is quite nice. She also has a child, making her understand the priority of my son. I'm taking things slow. I still feel random anxiety that she might be hiding something. But my therapist reassures me that this reaction is normal considering what I've experienced. Yes, I have a therapist too. Men's mental health and all that. Maria attempted reconciliation 6 weeks ago. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, all dressed up and crying, saying she made the biggest mistake of her life, that she missed her family and would do anything to fix it. For a fleeting moment, I remembered the woman I had fallen in love with, but then I recalled her laughing with Vivian about how I wasn't Grayson's real dad, and that feeling vanished quickly. I told her we could be cordial co-parents. Nothing more. She didn't take it well, initially bursting into tears before becoming angry. She claimed I was punishing her, that I had already won and should be satisfied. When she saw Ellie's sweater on my couch, nothing had happened. She'd just been cold. She completely lost it, accusing me of having her over when Grayson was home. He was actually with my mum, saying I was replacing her all too quickly. The irony was not lost on me, and I ultimately threatened to call the police to get her to leave. The next day, she sent an apology text. But after that incident, I invested in a Ring doorbell. Best $60 I've ever spent. Vivian reached out last month as well, sending me a message on Instagram to express her regret over her role in all this. She claimed she thought I already knew about Grayson and was just playing along for Maria's sake. I immediately told her I wasn't interested in her apologies and blocked her without hesitation. Last week was Grayson's 7th birthday. Maria and I agreed to throw a small party together for his benefit, resulting in surprisingly civil interactions. She brought her mom, and I brought mine. Grayson was simply joyful to see everyone there. Maria seemed subdued, as if the fight had drained her. She kept glancing at me and Grayson as though she were memorizing the moment. It made me feel odd, to say the least. After the party, she asked to talk privately. Maria informed me she was moving to Cincinnati for a fresh start due to a better job offer, and asked if I'd bring Grayson to visit occasionally. I simply stated we'd figure it out as we went. She's leaving next month. Part of me feels relieved, while another portion feels sad for Grayson. But children are adaptable, as I mentioned. So that's where we stand. Life moves forward, you know. Some days I continue to wake up angry, while on others, I'm grateful for what I do have. Grayson is thriving now that the tension has dissipated, and my new apartment feels more like home each day. Work is going well, and dating is strange but not terrible. Just the other night, while we were making pizza from scratch and creating a significant mess in my compact kitchen, Grayson looked up at me with tomato sauce smeared all over his face and said, "Dad, I'm glad we live here now. Mom was always mad at you at the old house. Children, man, they see everything. I'm unsure what lies ahead. Maybe one day I'll be able to fully trust someone again, or maybe I'll always have that uneasy voice at the back of my mind." But I do know that overhearing that Bluetooth conversation was both the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. Living a lie isn't truly living. Thanks for accompanying me on this journey, Reddit. Your comments and support have helped in ways you can't imagine. Now I'm signing off from this narrative and ready to focus on the future rather than reliving the past. DR. 5 months after the divorce, I have primary custody of Grayson, a new apartment, a dog, and I'm slowly rebuilding my life. Maria lost her job, most of her friends, and is relocating. The biological father relinquished his parental rights, but contributes child support. Life isn't perfect, but it's honest now.